I think we're live.
I don't see us live again yet. Are we live?
Are we live?
You're
I
live
don't see
on.
us
Okay.
live.
Yeah, you're live.
Plus is like, yeah, you're
You're
live.
live.
No, we're not live. We're not live anywhere.
I see combo. Combo's live.
Now we're live on Rockfin. We're not live on your YouTube yet.
Yeah, looking good, guys.
Let's see. Now we're live on YouTube. There we go. Ah,
I think we're live everywhere, huh? We're good?
yeah, we're live everywhere now. Looks like
Okay.
we're finally in. All right, so let's get going over here. Welcome back, everybody, to Hell and Back. If you went to hell and you came back, you're in the right spot. You're here with me, Pasta Jardula, and Chanda, Masta, the accidental activist, who I say, you are no accident at all, my good
Aw.
friendly co-host. How you doing today?
I'm good. It's hot on the West Coast. We're having this heat wave, but I gotta say, the feedback on the show, Pasta, has been so amazing. People really are relating to what we're bringing, and that just makes me want to work harder. And I really think it comes down to just how open and honest we're being about this. And I think that's something that is unique and we really haven't seen a lot of.
You know something funny? Somebody told me that it's like they don't watch the show live, but when they get time off to the side, they'll go watch it in private. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
Yes.
something really personal to a lot of people watching this
Yeah.
show. Um, so yes, the feedback we've been getting on it has been amazing. Last week's show, I think, was pretty
Oh,
awesome. You
you
know, it's
killed it. Yeah.
life changing, right? You know, I was in
Yes.
Georgia and got to experience that, and so yeah, I mean, I think we just keep on doing what we're doing and keep
I agree.
building on our education on the whole situation. I know from what I know now from doing the show with you is so much more along the lines of what I knew back in the days, and even what we're going to talk about today. You know, because there's a lot of myths out there, and I think the greatest myth that we've been crushing, the biggest myth at least, is the fact that this is a choice, right?
Yeah, exactly.
This is a choice. Is the myth that we're just say no, right? We're squishing, we're crushing, we're destroying that myth, and we're putting in the actual links to where this comes from, the actual root cause of this situation. And when people understand that, and they understand how this whole situation becomes about, where 70,000 people die every year from opioid addictions, that so many people get addicted their first time on
Yeah.
opioids from what their doctor did. You know what I'm saying? I can't wait until we talk about it. Was it the Sackler family? Oh,
Yes. Oh,
I
yeah. We're
can't
going
wait.
to talk about the
Purdue,
Sacklers. Yeah,
we got to do
Purdue.
that. You know what I'm saying? And I think there's other networks that are kind of seeing what we're doing. I'm not going to say who, but somebody else just had a
Good.
podcast recently talking about the Sackler family. So I think they're kind of, and I'm happy about it. If they want to take this
Yeah, me too.
information, if they want to, even if they want to copy us or do better than us, I don't care. If they're yelling into a megaphone about this issue we have in the United States, then so be it. That's the most important thing, because you've lived this life, Chanda, and you're here to talk about it. You're a survivor, a different survivor of what we always called on the left. And I'm so happy to be doing with this. I'm just ready to get rock and rolling, keep on educating, keep on learning, and let's make a change. Let's if we understand and we're compassionate about this, that's how we really make change. And I just want to know your
Absolutely.
thoughts about us making change.
Yeah, I think that you're right. Getting people to understand that this wasn't a choice. I was just telling my partner this morning, it's not fair because I avoided the pitfalls of becoming an alcoholic and losing, my job and my life and all that. I avoided the pitfalls of cocaine and meth and all of that just to go to the doctor and have him addict me. I was almost 30 years old when I was handed my addiction. And yeah, I'm a little, it's like, God, that's not fair. That's not fair. I did everything right. And I went to my doctor. I listened to my doctor like I was supposed to, like I'd been trained to do my whole life. And here I am. And, there's many ways to deal with addiction. And I'm learning so much more by doing this show because of all the research we're doing for the show. There's so much stuff I didn't understand. I did 12 steps and I did AA. So I understand a lot of the treatment. And I've been through a lot of rehabs with friends and family, a lot since I was a kid. My dad committed suicide, but before that, he went to rehab 3 times. And so as a kid, you're being pushed through the system with him, through anon meetings and family support meetings, those, family therapy sessions and stuff. So this is something I've been, a keenly aware of since I was very young, the process of treatment and battling an addiction. And what we don't we just think that abstinence is the only way in this country. You just quit. You just quit. Have enough willpower that you
Yeah.
had to find the drug to quit the drug. There you go. It's not that simple. And there's other ways. There is the harm reduction method, which is pretty much the method that I use because I use an all natural herb called kratom to get through my withdrawals and pains. But there's so many other ways. And of course, Matt. And Matt's the one we talk about the most. And we're going to talk about Matt a lot today again. And I'm glad that if you guys followed last week, we kind of broke down all the Matt medications and what it exactly is. But I'm very torn when it comes to Matt. And we're really going to get into why I'm torn as we go through this. But, I do support it. It does help people. But is enriching big pharma, which unleashed this epidemic on us, the right answer?
Well, that is the thing too. And a lot of people are talking about when we start connecting the dots, right? This whole opioid thing was like, oh, let's bring opioids to the market because it's not addicting, right? That's what they said initially in the beginning, right? And then all of a sudden it was, oops, it's not addicting. It's one of the most addicting things. And the withdrawals can actually kill you. And I think a lot of people are kind of facing that looking at in themselves in the mirror right now when it comes to the vaccine. They're like, well, am I going to trust Big Pharma? I mean, look what they did. They're killing 70,000 people a year on opioids and God knows how many on stimulants and other things, and how people are walking around addicted and they're being incarcerated, and the prison industrial complex is making a ton of money and whatnot now. And I think it affects them. Like people who've already taken the vaccine, they're questioning it now because they're questioning Big Pharma and every
And
single
that's
situation.
sad.
I know it is sad, but it's also
Yeah.
it's helpful right now. This show is actually, it's not only helpful, Chanda, to get people to understand the opioid addiction and the whole parallels to it and the connection to how it started, but it's also playing a part to people today making that choice. Should I take the vaccine or not?
Yeah.
Because Big Pharma has a history of not giving a fuck and killing us. I mean, you once said to
Yeah.
me, Big Pharma's been trying to kill me for 30 years. I'm not going to let them kill me now.
Exactly. And, I feel that way. I had a really good friend. She passed away about a year ago, but she won the first ever lawsuit against Big Pharma in Washington state. They gave her bladder cancer. Oh, with a medication for blood pressure, I don't know, 20 years ago or something. And she fought them tooth and freaking nail because in my eyes, they killed her. I mean, she fought back. She got healthy. She went vegan. She extended her life for a pretty long time. But still, the bottom line is they poisoned her. And I look around, and if you read the studies, they're poisoning us every way they can. If you're following the chemical cartel, it's in everything, not just pills and vaccines and medicines. It's literally in everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's talk about this today. This is going to be very interesting too, as well, because there's going to be certain things when we do get eventually to slide 6, which is the slide that will tell you how many people are in jail who have actually been convicted of a crime. It speaks volume to the fucked up bail system we have as well, but it also speaks
Yeah.
volume to actually how people can get addicted and turn to drugs, or if they are addicted. And we also know that people, the state unfortunately offers more of incarceration rather than rehabilitation.
Oh yeah.
So people going into the system, like I said, the thing that was so mind blowing about the 2 ladies in North Georgia that we covered last week is that one didn't get in trouble with the law until she was 40. The other one didn't get in trouble with the law until she's 42.
Yes.
So now you have this addiction, you need your medication, and now you're thrusted into a prison system. What happens then? So many things can happen when you come out, which we'll explain. So many things happen when you go in that we're going to show. So it's very important for people to understand this, because the United States, whether we like it or not, and for all you people out there who are anti-China, who think that the Uyghurs are jailed more than we jail people in the United States, that's false. That's a theory. The United States jails more of its citizens per capita than any country in the world.
Yes.
And we have to get that through our fucking minds, because the whole addiction and drug situation now plays a role in society and what happens to people, especially poor people who can't afford to get that lawyer, who can't afford to get that bail, and sometimes got to spend a couple days in jail for something they might not ever be convicted of.
Oh yeah. And that's my story. I don't know how many times I have been, picked up for something stupid and then they just kick me out the next day. But in the meantime, I'm sicker and crap inside the holding cell. Yeah. That's a common thing. And
Yeah.
I
I've been
gotta
arrested before and I was released, never charged. It was stupid that I got arrested, but that's the
It
system,
happens
baby.
all the time. They can
Yeah.
hold you. They can kick you out. They
And then
they
the
don't
city
like you. They do
councilman
it.
goes, well, we need more money to house prisoners that we arrest. We
Yeah.
need more money for food. We need no more money for this. And then they take it out of the budget. And now their cops are just arrest them now. We'll figure it out later mentality. Well, somebody's getting paid for that. So now your bail bondsmen are making money.
Yep.
The city's making money, is taking a ton of money of taxes just to jail people, just to have a police force that has a helicopter and shit. It just plays into the same freaking system. So
and their numbers are based, I mean, their funds are based on those arrest numbers. So even if you weren't convicted, whatever, you were part of that number of, oh, we need money to cover this amount of people. And I really like further down when we get into the whole Matt and the situation, that coming up with funding for this stuff is becoming a major issue too, even if you're in, they're in jail. So this video here, I saw this. I came across it earlier today and I was going to bring it, and I came and saw you already had it on here. I love great minds think alike. So
you're proud of me that I could do a good job,
proud
Chanda?
of you. Oz and I always think alike, and now you and I are thinking alike.
Well, let's get rolling on this video over here. And we'll do it.
Once you come in here and you have to detox, you're traumatized. You're just constantly shaking because your body's hurting. For the mommies and daddies out there still running amok.
Can we not hear it, Oz?
Still using time. Some people get a fever, some people are throwing up. But being on Suboxone makes it 100 times easier.
There you go.
Jails do sometimes provide some basic care for people in withdrawal, but that can often be Gatorade and then ibuprofen. And they're not really fundamentally providing the
You won't hear it.
that somebody with
Oh, we can't hear it?
disorder needs.
Not yet. Sorry.
All right, I'll just.
In Bellingham, Washington, a recent class action lawsuit by the ACLU may impact how inmates across the country are treated for addiction.
Whatcom County has changed dramatically over the last 15 years. It's still a great community to live in. It's a great community to raise your family. But like the rest of the country, we're experiencing a heroin epidemic that has entrenched itself here in our community and is affecting crime. It's destroying lives and it's destroying families. It's something we're very focused on eradicating here in our community.
I've been working for the Sheriff's Office in the Corrections Bureau in the jail since 1981, so that's going on 39 years. Approximately 70 to 80% of our offender population has some issues with some type of substance. When we're dealing with folks when they're coming into custody, withdrawal is like a really bad case of the flu or a bad case of food poisoning.
It's like the flu, but 100 times worse. I've been an addict for 24 years. I was 13 when I first picked up. I've had my issues in the past when I was using and did some stupid things. Other than that, my charges are for driving. I started Suboxone about 8 years ago.
Suboxone is a form of medication-assisted treatment. It's prescribed by a growing number of physicians to help those suffering from opioid use disorder curb their craving.
There has been a couple of times I slipped, I fell off. When I came in last year, I was on Suboxone, and they didn't give it to me then, and so I had to detox. And so it set me up for a really hard time not being able to be given my Suboxone in here. When I got out of here, I relapsed. I relapsed for 10 months. I think that if I went back to last year and they gave me Suboxone, I wouldn't be here right now doing 180 days.
Our challenge in working with the criminal justice system is the transition from incarceration back out into the community.
Charles Watrous runs a medication-assisted treatment program in Whatcom County that often works with inmates in the first few days they're released from jail.
When we started our program in 2017 in Whatcom County, we wanted to coordinate and be able to continue delivery of services to our patients.
What's your current dose? 3 8 milligram tablets.
And it's oftentimes not until they get released from jail a week or two later that they said that they were not allowed to continue their medication, went through the horrible withdrawal process, and then were released and then trying to scramble to get back into treatment.
I know Whatcom County, yes, I've been there, so I know exactly. They don't care what you go through in there. When I went in like the second and third time, you know, for stupid little things, I actually said I wasn't sick because I know they don't take care of you. They put you on the first floor and they call that sick thing, and they don't check on you.
We've always treated withdrawals symptomatically. We can give them pain medication, it's normally Tylenol. We'll also use medication that'll help stop the diarrhea.
We tried to offer Whatcom County Jail our support in getting their program off the ground, but it was sort of falling on deaf ears. It wasn't until Mark Cook from the ACLU reached out to me and said, we're looking at cases where patients are being denied access to medication-assisted treatment. And it really started the ball rolling from there.
Okay. I'm glad I watched that earlier because I didn't get to hear the sound on it. They were talking about methadone, right? Inside the MAT program inside the prisons in Bellingham and Whatcom County, Washington, that's where they were at, which I happen to be really close to. And Oz lived in Bellingham for a long time. So we're familiar with this. And yeah, Washington State is starting to bring medically assisted treatment into the prison.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about that, Chanda. I have some questions. Let's say, for argument's sake, that you have an issue with opioids and you're addicted, right? Oz, I think the camera's kind of cutting my head off too as well. Let me thing if I scooch down low. Is that better? Can you see my head? I don't want to get
there. You
cut
go.
off.
You're good.
There it goes. Okay. Let's say if you have a problem, you're addicted to opioids and you get picked up, right? Because you've talked about this. How many times you've been in jail for whatever stupid reasons, right? They just grab you.
I've never been to
you,
prison.
They incarcerate you.
Drunken fights.
Let's talk about a situation where they arrest somebody and you don't have money for bail, and now you have an opioid addiction and you're sitting in prison or jail. What can you expect, and how does that play out?
You know, I had this happen to me. This was in 2011. I had a warrant because I went to West Virginia. I was so wrapped up in my addiction, and I'd gotten a fight with, I was going through a divorce at the time. I got in a fight with my husband. It was just like a stupid 4th degree malicious mischief, you know, just something they can charge you with because they don't want to deal with the situation. And so when I came back, I turned myself in. I literally went to the jail and rang the doorbell and said, yeah, I got a warrant. I'd like to come in. I was just at that such of a low point in my life, I would actually do that. And the judge was pissed because I live in a small town. I know the judge. He's known our family. You know, everybody's been rotated before him. That's the way these small towns in these district courts work. And he said, well, you directly disobeyed me. You didn't come back. So I want like a $500 bail. It was something like 500, you know, 250, 500, just enough to make sure that whoever gave me the money, I would come back for, basically. You know, he's trying to teach me a lesson. So here I am now. I'm about 24 hours into being in jail. And yeah, the withdrawals hit. And I'm telling the jail nurse, like, look, I have a, you know, like 120 milligram a day methadone. And she's like, well, at that time, they won't give you your medication unless you've been sentenced, and they come in blister packs. So you literally have to get your doctor to change your prescription. So when it goes to the pharmacy, they put them in individualized blister packs. So that way they can keep track of them and pass them out to you. So you're looking at weeks before you can get your medications into jail. And it's still that way for everybody. It doesn't matter if you're on a benzoid, if you're on anything. They have to be already pre-blister packed. And that's always what really stumps you up, because you can't just go to the doctor and be like, hey, will you write me a script? I'm going to jail. You know, you can't call your doctor from jail. So if you don't have bottles at home that somebody can take to the pharmacy and get them blister packed and bring them up to you, you know, you're sitting there without nothing. So basically back then she knew my blood pressure was through the roof. I mean, my heart was wanging through the roof. I couldn't sit still. I shake. I just sit there and rock, you know, because that's the only way you see me rocking. I'm not feeling good. And stomach cramps, wanting to vomit, you know, jail food is already horrendous as it is. And you definitely don't want any of that. But while I was in there that time, the girl next to me in the bunk next to me, they'd throw me in a work release pod because, I'm a pretty girl. They were worried about me, I guess. So the girl next to me, she went into DTs and she got really, really violently sick. She had a fever of like 104 and she was just laying in that cot thrashing. And I felt so bad for her. I go get her a wet washcloth and, there's nothing you can do for somebody in jail, other than beat on the door and tell the guard, hey, she's really sick. And they don't give a shit. They're not going to circle around for another 12 hours or, might come throw your food through the door, the slot, one way or another. But they really don't care that you're sick. And I remember begging that guard to bring her some ibuprofen, aspirin, anything to help bring that fever down because she was delusional. She was just losing it. She was so sick. And basically, the nurse just comes by in the morning if you have meds or whoever's allowed to pass out the meds and distribute them. And if you tell them that you're sick, they'll take your temperature. And if they get worried, they'll do your blood pressure. They took my blood pressure. And they finally started giving me blood pressure meds because I scared them because my blood pressure was so through the roof because of the withdrawals. But yeah, no, they give you some sodium water and that's that
Yeah.
you lay there and just die. You're so sick and
I know.
trapped in
You
hell.
lay there and just die.
Yeah, you're trapped in hell because you're trapped in your head and everything's running through your head from, my family and I want to be out and what's going to happen? How long am I going to be in here? And you're just so sick and I don't sleep. I do not sleep when I DT. That's the first thing that's gone for weeks for me. And yeah, so I'm just literally 24 hours trapped in hell.
So let's I saw the very beginning of the scene, like, okay, she's in there with draw and you can see the girl singing, trying to do something. It seems like you get more
music
more
helps.
love from your cellmates and more love from people in there who understand. It's kind of like the drug community. Like a lot of people thought, oh, the drug community is like a vicious, you got to watch yourself. They're going to stick you, steal you, rape you. It's like, no,
They
like
will.
you guys take care of each other.
They
And
do.
when you go into prison, it seems, or jail, you have that bond and you take care of each other. And what I saw was those women trying to sing while one was going through withdrawals and whatnot. But the obvious attention you get from the prison guards or the corrections officers or just the whole system itself is shit. And the fact that right now, if you go in, what happened after the 24 hours when you were shaking and you were having the sweats and you were withdrawing and
I blew.
you're having a methadone withdrawal here.
Yeah.
And
I blew everybody's phone up I knew on the outside and just get your asses down here now and get me the fuck out of here. I mean, I was that blatantly rude. I mean, I remember one time my mom just hanging up on me, like, you got yourself in there, deal with it. And, you're just heartbroken. They said they were going to get the money. Where are they? And then, there's always processing and all that. So, I normally, a few times I have been in trouble and arrested. I've been out within 48 hours.
I can see like my aunts and the old people saying, well, if you don't want to have problems with your medical stuff, then don't get arrested.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, hello, we arrest more people than anybody on the friggin' planet for our state. And we put more people in jail. And the reason why we do that, we want that cheap labor. So there's a reason. And there's money to be made in the prison industrial complex. So let's go to the next slide and talk about this right here too as well, because as we get into the numbers, it will be startling for some of you out there to just see what's going on. So please go ahead, Chanda.
Okay, so approximately 80% of offenders abuse either drugs or alcohol. Also, approximately 50% of prisoners are clinically addicted to one or more drugs, according to the Federal Bureau of Prisons in June of 2017. Now, that was when the last report I could find in my research that came from the Federal Bureau of Prisons was in 2017. So we know how much more has changed in the last 3 years.
Yeah. That's crazy. That's crazy.
I know. Isn't that crazy?
Oh my God.
But really, that's just an estimated number. And we're going to get into why that's an estimated number as I get down in these stacks.
I mean, just think about it. It says approximately 50% of the prisoners are clinically addicted to one or more drugs. That's half the prison population.
Half.
And we have more prisoners per capita in the United States than any other country. So it's just like crazy. Like we have the most addicted people. I mean, and they're in for addicted. They're not even a human being. They're treated like a rat,
You're a dog. You're
like a specimen.
You're
It's
dog shit on a
disgusting.
shoe, basically, to these COs. They treat you like that. You are subhuman even if you've just been charged, you haven't even been convicted, they don't care. You are in jail, so you deserve to be there. And that's the mentality that the whole entire system has on you, from the judges, the attorneys, the people that work at the jail, all the way around. You're just a
Remember the
puppet.
last Batman with Bane when he was like, okay, like, Bane was the bad guy, but what he was doing was changing the whole system and putting like all the Congress people and all the ritzy people on, what I'm saying, to say,
Yeah.
okay, why don't you live in the shoes of these people's lives for one day? You see what it's like. Because really, to tell you the truth, that's what it's all about. It's all about the money, right?
Yeah.
Everybody starts talking about, oh, I feel bad for Hunter Biden. You know what I'm saying? It was just Hunter Biden hasn't spent one fucking day behind bars, and yet his father has pushed the fucking crime bill of 1984 that has locked up people who have a lot less part in addiction than his fucking son does. So once again, the laws are written for the elites and the rich and the 1%. Maybe some of the 4% get away with it, but it's disgusting the way they treat the rest of us like a bunch of rats. And they were 9 times out of 10, they were the cause for the problem because the man in a white coat said, here, take this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it is not clear exactly how many prisoners have substance abuse problems. What is clear, though, is that a huge percentage of the national prison and jail population suffers from drug addiction. The Bureau of Justice Statistics, part of the United States Department of Justice, estimates that in 2017 report that more than 2/3 of prisoners held in state prison and local jails have substance abuse problems, yet only a quarter of this group receive adequate drug treatment. So only a quarter out of 2/3. The BJS data was collected between 2007 and 2009. Well, we know that the epidemic wasn't at its peak in 2007 or 2009, right? So a 2016 study published in Substance Abuse and Rehab estimated that between 24 and 36% of opiate dependent adults cycle in and out of jail, creating a cycle between drug addiction and incarceration. And studies indicate that addiction sweeps up in opiate epidemic has not fared well while locked up. Yeah, so those sweep
All
up.
right.
So that's
I got a
shocking to me.
question. Yeah.
36% of adults with addiction will cycle through jail?
1 out of every 3 will go in and out of the jail program because it's profitable for the state, right? But let me ask you a question, okay? Um, is it harder or easier to get the amount of drugs inside the system as it is and outside the system? In other words, I would imagine it wouldn't be hard to get drugs, but it would be harder to get the amounts an addict would probably be able to get on the streets. Is that a
Yeah.
fair assessment?
That is a very fair assessment. There is a really great podcaster out there. He's got like 5 million followers. He's an ex-con. And he was talking about how it's $100 for one little tiny crack rock in prison, So yeah, I mean the costs, they're jacked up price wise. So yeah.
You can get it enough to hold you over. But this is something you also talked to me about too as well. People go in to jail as an addict and they're used to getting a certain amount on the streets. They spend a couple weeks in jail. They get enough to just get them by so they don't fucking kill themselves inside the jail cell. They get out now, their tolerance is dropped, and boom, they overdose because they went back to the same dosage they were using before we got in. Could you shine a little light on that?
Yeah, this is the biggest heartbreaking thing. And I've known so many people that this has actually happened to. And yeah, your tolerance lowers. A lot of times they will detox. They'll come out, their system will be totally clean, and they'll go right back to a big dose that their tolerance they were used to before. And yeah, they're dead. So the statistics on people dying right after a jail release, I think I have further down in the deck. It's shocking. And this is something I've personally dealt with. Anytime a family member of mine gets out of jail, even if they've been in jail for a month, or rehab, if they've been in rehab for 6 months, I'm scared to death for them. I wait for my phone to ring for weeks after they get out. I know that call is going to come one of these days that one of them is gone. And it's so freaking scary.
I was thinking about that today, and I was thinking, like, what would Chanda do if she had a friend that got out of jail who lowered their tolerance and is suffering? Would she make sure that person, she knew exactly what that person was taking in jail and keep them at that level, or just try to make sure that they wouldn't get to a position? Because it's very easy when you get out, call your guy, right? Call your guy. Yeah. Get me. I used to get 5 Vicodins on a Friday night. Let me get my 5 Vikes. And now I pop. And I was only taking a Vicodin every night for the last couple of weeks. And you're in the hospital. So, it also made me think about this too.
I
As well,
laugh because
Shane.
I could take 20 Vicodin like a day.
Dude, I had friends that would pop 20 Xanax at a time at one
Right,
point.
right, right.
That's where
That's
their
what I'm
talents
saying.
was. And
When
they
you're
drink with it too.
extremely addicted, I mean, I had friends that would take 20 and 30 methadone at a time.
Oh yeah, I was the driver for those friends. Like, all right, you
I'm
guys are
glad you
doing
drove.
pills tonight. I'm driving. I got you, and I drive us around wherever we were going, whatnot. You know what I'm saying? And it's kind of funny too because both of those guys, one of them was very much like me. Like we were Italian, we had family members, we
Right.
had a certain code and a certain law, and there was this upper Italian code is, oh, you sell drugs, you don't do drugs. You know what I'm saying? And we looked at it, hey, man, we keep doing this shit. We're going to get the plug pulled on us on our book operation. So we can't do this no more. So we made the decision. But the other friend didn't have that same kind of thing. And he's to this day, I mean, I don't even know if he's alive half the time. I lose track of him. You know what I'm saying? To this day, addicted to those pills. But you know what it also made me think about too, Shanda, too, as well? It made me realize how grateful I am that I don't have to battle going to hell and back. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And it will keep me from ever going down that alley ever. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think that I'll ever do cocaine again in my life. You know what I'm saying?
As you get older, I think you outgrow it.
You think about it. You're like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
once again,
Yeah.
I smoke, I do my marijuana, and I'm okay with that and stuff like that. But we understand that there's a big difference between that and the actual drug of an opioid and what's going on. And it's freaking frack. It's way all over the place. So yeah. This thing right over here, right above. And I want people to
Crazy.
I want them to set their eyes at the top over there where it says 74% of people held by jails are not convicted of any crime. 3 out of 4 people are never convicted of a crime. And yet they go into the system where how many percentage of people are addicted to drugs? Almost 80%. So pretty people who aren't even committing a crime that are just arrested by the discretion of the police department for saying, all right, we'll just arrest them now and we'll sort out everything later, which is kind of the mentality, right? Like the cops like, I don't want to come back on me. Just better arrest them to be safe than sorry. They're not even convicted of a crime, and maybe they shouldn't have been arrested in the first place, Shanda.
Yeah. And not convicted. The not convicted on that is insane. 470,000 are never convicted, but yet they have to go sit in jail. And this is class warfare here. This is straight up. The elite don't have to go through the same system that the rest of us do. And if you've ever been through the system, it's designed to prey on you. That's all it is from the start to the finish.
Yeah.
All the hoops you got to jump.
And before we get to the next slide, I just want to verify at the chat. I never used cocaine. I tried cocaine. I just tried it several times.
Hey, we're very honest in this show.
I never had a coke addict.
I did not inhale.
Addiction. Okay. I never used. I tried several times, but it was never for me. You know what I'm
All
saying?
Americans do. I don't care if you're rich or you're poor. Yeah. I mean, other than, very religious or maybe rural areas, you're lying in America if you say you haven't had contact, you don't have family members. I mean, everybody's touched by this epidemic and war on drugs.
Yeah. I remember going to a rave party in South Florida with a girl that I used to work with, and I was like, really interested in a girl. And we walk in, we went to a friend, she waves me over, and she snorts a line, and she just smiles there with the straw. And I'm like, yeah, sure, like nothing's going on, right? And I tried it one other time before in my life, so I really wasn't a pro at it. I was, and I was like, hey, what's going on?
Yeah, you're trying to play it cool. Play it cool.
Yeah,
right. That peer
cool.
pressure. That peer pressure.
I didn't inhale Steve Cutler. Thank you, Gamer for Life. No, but tried. I would say everything. I never really got, same thing with cigarettes. I think I might have bought 2 packs of cigarettes my whole life. You know what I'm saying? Like I never really had a smoking addiction. And so, yeah, but please continue.
I'd probably be an elite if I had all the money I spent on drugs and cigarettes.
I know, right? And let me tell you something. Joking. If I took Adderall in high school, I might have been a nuclear physicist. I'd be really emotional, fucked up. But that shit is crazy.
My kids, as they were growing up, the whole Adderall thing was starting to hit, right? Because they were just passing it out to kids like Tic Tacs in the 2000s and teens, and so many of them I'd catch them like, what is this? And yeah, it's a big deal in high school in America now. You can always come across those ADD meds.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like now in college, it's like, hey man, I got a lot of shit to do. You got any Adderall? I gotta get
I've
two
got
reports
professional
in and
friends. I've
yeah,
got professional friends that live on prescriptions of Adderall.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
they're adults, they're working, they're grinding. And yeah, me not judging, just noticing, like, okay, I know who's doing what, but to each their own. So the substantial prison population in the United States is strongly connected to drug related offenses. While the exact rate of inmates with substance use disorders is difficult to measure, some research shows that in estimates that 65% of US prison population has SUD. Now see how they're changing? Another 20% did not meet the official criteria for SUD, but were under the influence of the drugs and the alcohol at the time of their crime. So boy, that's a big difference that Crime Justice Drug Facts is reporting versus the Bureau of Prisons, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's a
It
huge
almost seems
difference.
like though they want to get people arrested no matter what, even if they're gonna let them go and not charge them. So maybe
Yeah,
they can get them on an addiction when they come out, so they can make money off them another way. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy.
absolutely.
It's
So
well, at the very least, they don't care. They have an attitude of let's arrest them now. We'll work it out later. And a lot of that depends on class. If it's a poor
yeah, oh,
neighborhood,
totally.
let's arrest them. Fuck it. You know, whatever color they are, white, black, doesn't make poor
Right,
neighborhood. They ain't got no money for a lawyer. They can barely look at his shit house, take them to jail. That's it.
right.
But if you're in a ritzy area, you know what I'm saying? Like, sir, can you leave for the night? Your wife seems a little bit upset. Maybe you can go somewhere and not come back for the night. And that would really appreciate us. But the dude around the other corner who might be on some opioid or drug or whatever, no, you're going to fucking jail, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and you're getting, thousands of dollars worth of fines and years of, anger management and classes and, evals and every single thing costs. You need a drug eval. Okay, well that's $230. Oh, you need, this and the courts require it. And actually, if you can prove that you can't afford it, I think they have to pay for it. Is what I understand.
Ah,
Okay,
jeez.
so more than half of the state's prison populations, or two-thirds, sentenced to jail, report dependency. Yeah, we've already established that. About 40% of the state's prison population reports using drugs at the time of their offense for which they're incarcerated for. So 40% of people in prisons were under the intoxication of drugs. That's crazy to me. And drugs vary by gender and race, as reported in the past. Women are more likely than men, and whites more likely than blacks and Hispanics and other racial or ethnic groups to report drug dependency or abuse, to report drug use at the time of their offense, or to have ever reported using coke, using anything at the time. So really the studies that they're doing, they're not accurate because hey, were you high when you did it? That basically they don't they'll never know the true number, I don't think.
Yeah, yeah, that's guessing, but it does speak to culture, right? Like,
Right,
like
right.
the authority and the doctor. It's like, I was always talking about like, my father, he was like, we're Italian, we're not white, they're wasp. Where my mom was more acclimated to, oh, listen to the doctor, you know what I'm saying, like that. So when it came to a time where they wanted to put me on Ritalin, my dad was like, hell no. But my
Yeah.
mom was like, we should do it. And he was like, hell no. But
Your mom's
it's
like, I'm
more
the one who's
about
going to deal with him.
it's more like compliance. Like that white guy will listen to the doctor. It's part of their culture. Oh, you're in trouble now. You might as well fess up and tell you the truth. If you tell the truth, they'll go easier on
Yeah.
you, and you tell them the truth like it's schmuck. You know what I'm saying? And stuff like that, where, a lot of people of color who are constantly, under, the thumb of the fucking law, be like,
Right.
fuck you. I ain't telling you shit,
Right.
dog, because you're just going to use it against me because
Exactly.
that's part of their culture because they constantly have to sweat that shit. You know what I'm saying? It's bullshit, but I think that's what that stat maybe
No,
produces.
I
Or maybe
agree.
I'm completely wrong. Who knows?
No, I think that's exactly what that stat is saying. So, inmates with opiate use disorders particularly pose a challenge. During their time in prison, many untreated inmates will experience a reduced tolerance to opiates because they've stopped using drugs while incarcerated. Upon release, many will return to the levels of use similar to what they used before incarceration, not realizing their bodies can no longer tolerate the same dose, increasing their risk of overdose and death. One study found that 14.8% of all former prisoners' deaths from 1999 to 2009 were related to opiates. So 14.8%. Insufficient pre-release counseling and post-release follow-up or any particular response for these alarming increases in mortality. And these are old studies. I mean, 2009.
Yeah. Well, this is something we were talking about. Like you're in jail. See, I start thinking, well, what would I do? Is what I say. Like if I was in, county for 3 weeks, right?
Right.
I would probably take drugs and I'd probably take uppers, right? Because I want to be alert all the time. I don't want to come get, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I mean, maybe I would stay clean if I
Ready to
could.
get shanked. Yeah.
I, there's so many, like you're a fucking wreck. If you know what it's like to go into jail. It's the motions. And so you're a wreck.
It is.
You're
You are a
mentally,
wreck.
oh my God,
Yeah.
what the fuck can happen to me at any time? I got to watch out. So
Yeah.
I even said to myself, I mean, maybe I would do like an upper so that if somebody tries to come get me or fight me, you know,
Yeah.
whatever. But now you get into a situation because a lot of people say also too as well, like, you see the movies, Shanda. Well, that time in jail, I used it to drive myself out.
Right. Spun dry you.
But some people just take enough. Most people, I would assume, will just take enough of their drug of choice just to get by. Number one, because ridiculously priced. But number two, because they're addicted and they have to take something from those withdrawals. We've talked about withdrawals all the time. We'll talk a little bit about withdrawals at the end again, because I want to make sure I'm going to make sure that we put this in the show every single time. We're going to talk about withdrawals, 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 withdrawals. Those two ladies I talked about last week, they were fearful of withdrawals, scared shitless of withdrawals.
I still am. I
this day,
take
right?
kratom. To this day, I take kratom. And right now, my kratom supply is getting low. I don't get paid till next week. That fear is starting to set in. Oh shit, I got stuff to do this week. If I don't have my medicine, I'm not going to be out of bed. I'm not going to sleep. I'm not going to be able to do research or any of my shows. I still live with that fear on me every day. And I hate it. I fucking hate it. But I don't think I'll ever get away from it. And so many of my family members now are living under that same fear, but they're finally getting their lives together because of like Matt, the medically assisted treatment, because of drugs like Suboxone and even methadone. As much as I hate methadone is saving somebody I love's life right now, even though it was my downfall, it was my bane.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You talked about it. And like, that's the whole thing, is that I have now a different situation. Like when talking to Mandy last week in North Georgia, and when we started going over this, I was like, how the fuck could they give somebody methadone, give somebody a drug to get rid of a different drug habit? But I mean,
it's harm reduction is what it is. It's harm reduction. They're not out there shoving needles in their arms and hustling on the street to get their medication. They're getting up, they're being a functioning member of society now. They stop by the methadone clinic, they get their dose in the morning, and then they go to work and they lead a productive life. They still hurt, they still feel like crap. They're not high. I mean, if they're getting the right adjusted dose of methadone, they should not be high on either Suboxone or methadone, if their clinician is doing their job right. And so, yeah, harm reduction is what I see. I never outwardly go and support Matt because I don't want to enrich big pharma for, trying to kill all of us, but it is saving people.
It just seems like it's almost like that, 2016, 2020 decision, methadone is Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump was the opioid addiction. If you want to look at it that way, I think we did, but that's the thing. As we're looking into it, we're like, wait, isn't methadone more harmful on the body than the opioids? Really? Maybe Donald Trump was the methadone this time and Joe Biden was the opioid. Who knows? But it does seem like a lesser of two evil harm reduction. That's what it seems like. But please, let's talk about Matt.
Yeah. So Matt, just as it sounds, Matt provides various medications along with counseling to fend off chemical dependency that is a part of an opiate addiction. 3 main types of Matt drugs exist. We've talked about all these in the past: methadone, Suboxone, and naloxone, I think is what it's called. These are all common outside of prison, but although hailed within the scientific and medical communities as a key component of a comprehensive treatment plan, most correction facilities are prohibiting their use. So across the country, jails, especially county jails, where they see county jails are on the front lines of this opiate epidemic across the country, because they're the ones seeing these people come in. In prison, by the time you get to prison, you've been in jail for a long time, you've been sentenced, you've been moved. Normally you've got something worked out, or you're just using street drugs in prison. You withdraw from methadone. You withdraw from methadone harder than you do from heroin.
See, that's a big issue. And by the way, I just want to send some love out. What's that? I'm so sorry.
And people don't believe that you withdraw from methadone. You
That
do.
that's why to me it just doesn't make sense to click that that's the proper treatment. To me, it's like I want to hear more treatments about marijuana, how marijuana is used in opioid treatments. I want to know more about kratom because the kratom seems like one now, but that's the whole thing. Like when I was just in North Georgia, Mandy told me one of the judges is like the judge heard that somebody said we have kratom here and a sign in the window, and he's like, I'm gonna make sure I get rid of kratom out of
Oh, the
every
South
single.
hates it.
Yeah, I mean,
The
and so
places
we
that
have
need it most.
yeah, and these are things that are going to get left in the dark, and we really need to discuss them because as you're sitting here and saying, "Yo, I need kratom," and if they pull if they pull the rug out from under kratom, oh boy, what next? And you're not going to be the only one saying that.
No.
A lot of other people are going to be saying that, and
Within
that's
our
what we should be
community.
doing. Huh?
Within our community. I'm
Yeah.
telling you, there's a lot of the Bernie community that has pivoted to kratom to help them. I'm shocked every day. The people I run into that are using kratom, that found kratom because they had an opiate addiction and it's helped them. But I'm not here. We'll do a kratom show, and I think next week we should do a medical marijuana show.
We could do that. You know what I'm saying too as well. We got to do an Adderall show.
Yeah.
We got to do that. And we got to get more interviews. I think we might have a friend in town next Monday, next Thursday, hopefully. He might be in town by then. I'm going to find out what, and if he's going to be in town, I'll tell you who he is. We can have him on the show. I think you'll definitely approve. But let me get his schedule straight, so we'll figure out what to do next week. But we got to put those on the list. We need to do a kratom show, an Adderall show, a medical marijuana show. But basically, the question I have for you right now, and big shout out to our people watching on the Roar Rockfin that I didn't say hi to. There's a guy by the name of Brad. Brad. I don't notice you from the Combo Couch show. If I miss you, I'm so sorry, but thank you for showing up today. Lucky Burrito AM is in there. And I want to send my love to you guys. I know later on Hunter Carranza will be watching the show, and I want to send some love to her and Ty. So thank you for everybody joining in and stuff. And I think we also have to open up an avenue, Chanda. We should probably talk about this in a meeting, but maybe we can open up an avenue of having an email where people can come in, maybe tell us our stories, and maybe have some of our guests on, because I found out through doing this over the last 3 years as an independent media guy that some of the best leads I get and some of the people that have the best stories and the insight are our fans, are our followers. So if anybody wants to jump in while the water's warm, and hey, Brad, and maybe tell us their story and maybe get interested in coming on or sending us their story, we can do all these things. We'll talk about that a little bit down the road. Because I'm just learning that a lot of people want to start telling their stories because they think it will be beneficial for people out there to hear. And I think your story, Chanda, and the story from last week, and I think you're way ahead of where the ladies are right now. They're finishing up drug court, but people need to hear these success stories. People who are addicted need to know that they have a chance. It's going to be fucking hard. Nobody says it's not going to be hard, but they have a chance. You know what I'm saying? To live a normal life, to love, to not be, in hell in their own minds anymore. You know what I'm saying? And then we also have to have acceptance of the situation of what's going on there. People who do use opioids at small amounts that still live a productive lives with their doctors. What some of the people in the medical field intended to do was to say, okay, it's heartless to let these people suffer in pain, right? So we can give them something where they can alleviate that pain, but still leave a productive life of what they're doing. So be it. So looking at everything at all angles is very, very important. And my last question to you before we get to this last segment of the Matt thing is, you're saying pretty much that kratom is a different choice. I want to use the different. I can't say basic friggin' English words sometimes when I'm doing this.
I know, I get what you're saying. I do.
You have a choice to take kratom or methadone. It's a
natural.
Right?
It's a natural. It's not synthetic.
Okay. But they're both, in other words, it's something you can take other than methadone. Like, in other words, it would be a choice. Hey, you want to take kratom over methadone to try to take care and curtail an opioid addiction?
Yeah, but the problem is most clinicians in the United States are being fed, of course, the narrative from the FDA and the DEA that kratom is harmful. They don't have the research on it because they haven't done the research on it. The kratom community has. The kratom community is the only community that I have seen in my last 7 years of being in this movement that's beat back a government agency, a 3-letter agency. And that is, we beat back the DEA and the FDA in 2016. But I really think what saved us was Trump and his administration did not come after Kratom over the last 4 years. But now that Biden's in there and the Obama cronies are back, Scott Gottlieb has decided that he's going to make it his personal mission to come back after us because he got shut down and shamed. And yeah, it's very scary. It is an alternative. I
That's the
don't
word I was
advocate
looking
for it.
for, by the way.
Alternative, yeah.
I
I
was
don't
looking for
advocate
I
for
could
it.
alternative.
Yeah.
But wait a
I
second. I
don't
thought when we
advocate
voted
for
for
it.
Joe Biden, I didn't vote for Joe Biden, but I thought those who were voting for Joe Biden were mitigating damage and voting out fascism. You're
No, they
telling
want
me
you to
that
go get
Trump,
on Big Pharma.
yeah, I know, right? Who's your daddy is the whole thing. So you're saying pretty much that kratom as an alternative to methadone is better. Number one, is it as addicting as methadone?
I don't know. To be quite honest with you, I haven't came off of it long enough to tell you how violent the withdrawals are going to be, but I do know that if I go a little bit of time without it, I do get violent. I get sick. And I have heard a lot of testimonies from people that say it was one of the worst things I've ever came off of. But, I've
Kratom?
came off
Yeah.
of, yeah, but I've came off of methadone and benzoids and, all of them combined and alcohol fueled. So I don't know. I really don't know, but I'm scared. I'm scared to try to stop, you know, I
Yeah,
don't want
yeah.
to be back where I was years ago. So I just, it's a curse. It is a curse, but I look at it as I have a disease like diabetes, or if I had a disease like heart disease, I have to have this medication in order to be this person, this functioning human being that can go out and grocery shop and take care of responsibilities and bring you guys incredible news.
Mhm.
But I can't do that without Kratom. So
What is the downfall of being on methadone? What does it do affect the body? Like, in other words, it might have a positive form that it actually helps with an opioid addiction. But what are the negative side effects of taking
oh, there's so
methadone?
many. There's so many. Well, you gain a lot of weight for one. It damages your teeth. Now, this is something that the medical community is just now starting to figure out. Because of your lack of saliva production, your teeth instantly start to go bad and you start having gum disease and problems. You know, uh, you nod, so you fall asleep on it if you're getting too high of a dose. You burn your house down, get in car wrecks, get DUIs. I've had lots of friends have all that shit happen to them. um my little group of friends, they were all handed methadone. Back then they had what they called wafers, and it was a 20 milligram methadone that you could break into 4 parts, and so a lot of people got like 5 of those a day. So then they dropped it down. They Because people were overdosing. This was about 2011. They decided no more wafers. They discontinued them and they only gave out little tiny 10 milligram pills. But what we figured out in the community was if you snort those little things, you get much higher faster, and then you don't stay high for so long. So now, because methadone works on almost like a time release, it's not really time release, but it's the way that it absorbs into your body, that it kind of piles up and piles up and piles up and piles up. So you don't realize you're getting higher and higher and
Yeah.
higher on methadone, but you are. And you just getting, you just feel good. You take a little nap and you wake up and everything's good. That's really
Yeah.
the gist of it. But the problem is, it's what you took on Wednesday, you're going to die from what you took on Monday. And that's the scary thing with
Wow.
methadone is because the way it piles up in your system, you take that one pill on Wednesday, all the pills that you took on Monday can come kill you.
Did you ever take Suboxone or Vivitrol?
No, one of my family members, we were addicted together, and they went on Suboxone, and they've been dealing with Suboxone for over 10 years now, on and off. Suboxone does work. I've seen people clean on it for a year or two, but with any addiction, you still backslide. You still have that little craving in the back of your head that's like, God, it would be so nice to get high right now, or triggers. It's a hot summer day. You're used to being out at the beach and being high. There's so many triggers, or whatever you enjoy
Yeah.
doing. And so, sadly, even with Suboxone on board, I've seen a lot of people backslide off Suboxone and go back to heroin. But then, a year later, 2 years later, you come out of jail or come out of rehab, they'll go back on Suboxone and it'll help them again for 2 years. So it's basically a cycle, the cycle of addiction we always talk about.
Yeah.
That becomes your life once you're addicted.
Will M in the chat says benzoids is nothing to fuck with. I was
Oh,
dope
hell
sick
no.
for a week. I thought I was going to die for 4 full days.
Yep.
It's like a coherent drunkenness without being loud, without being 100% obnoxious, excuse me, and stuff like that. Wow, thank you for sharing that, Will M. And we should talk. Let's get into the next part. But I have so many more questions. I can keep you here forever talking about these things. Because my last question is really quick, though. All right, so listen, we have all these things we're talking about to cure. We're talking about get a different addiction to cure another addiction, right?
Right.
Methadone or kratom to cure your opioid addiction. Same thing with Suboxone and all these things. Do you think that we have an issue where we have a lack of therapy when you sit down and you talk to a therapist, which might also be helpful to killing that addiction? Because you said, like, in the back of your head, there's still something, man, I wish I could be high. I wish I could take a little hit. But if you had therapy, actual therapy, and someone you can talk to, they may be able to give you a different perspective to fight that voice in your head. Because I think I don't know, because I've never had these issues as far as being addicted, but I would assume, because I've been through therapy before, every once in a while, a small part of my life, and I know how much
Did it help? Did it help?
Well, it was at a small time, and I was thinking about leaving LA, and I was just crying about my choices about coming out here and trying to be an actor, and I can't even, my car got towed, and you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And in between,
Situational stress,
for
right?
like about a month, and I took showers at the gym, and so I went and talked to somebody who put me out of a restaurant, and it was so helpful. She just gave me a different perspective. Literally, I went to therapy for 6 weeks, and I never really went back to therapy ever again. But for that time in my life, when I was really struggling and I could have turned to alcohol a little bit more, I was starting to feel really sorry for myself. She helped me out and said no, and I picked my ass and moved on with it. So I'm wondering if there's a lack of therapy, because I have a friend of mine who, on her day off, she goes and she is a therapist for abused women who are in, prison and stuff. And she does that on her spare time because it's so valuable, they say, for what she does. So I'm thinking that it's not just, okay, we don't have to provide just methadone or kratom or Suboxone.
Right.
We have to also provide therapy for people getting out of, jails and whatnot and stuff, or people struggling with addictions.
I think that therapy works for those who want it to work for them. My experiences with therapy is because I had so much deep-seated damage from the time that I was born, that it just brought it all to the surface and left me raw without the tools to deal with the emotions that it was bringing up, which actually made my addiction and my spiral worse. And then she enabled me, the therapist that I was going through, she actually enabled me by giving me even more pills. Here's some benzoids, here's some Wellbutrin, here's some, and so by then, back then, they didn't have your charts consolidated. You could go to 5 different doctors for 5 different things. I was always honest with my doctors, and, oh, hey, my shrink's giving me blah, 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 oh, hey, my regular doctor's giving me blah, blah, blah. So they always knew what I was taking, because the pharmacist knows what you're taking. But yeah, so for me, therapy didn't work. And that's just because I have a saying in my life, and that is shove it down deep and don't bring it up again, just because I've had so much trauma that if I ever was to unleash all that trauma and try to confront it head on, I honestly think it would destroy me. I don't think there would be oh, I feel better now. I think I actually have put it nice and neat in a little box and shoved it down, and it stays where I say. And sometimes it boils up. I think everybody has that.
Somebody, Will put down, that's awesome. I don't think therapists hear that kind of story very often. So when I'm thinking about you experiences, that you had the wrong therapist, right?
Oh,
so
right.
maybe that could be the situation. Who knows? Just something, food for thought.
I think it works for people who want it to work. I really do. I've known people who love their therapy and their therapists, and it's always great to have somebody to talk to and to vent and to get a different perspective from.
I think you need the right therapist at times too, as well. We were watching The Sopranos the other day, and here's Tony Soprano going to Jennifer Melfi, and she's the perfect therapist for him, and he's really she's helping him out, and it's really good. And then they show her and her ex-husband and her son go to therapy, and they got this schmuck therapist who's just talking about shit, and then ends the therapy session when they're all looking at each other. And I was like, yeah, they need a new therapist. But anyways, let's get on to the Matt litigation.
But that goes down to insurance, right? You don't get to go to a therapist if you don't have insurance. And then we put stigmas on people who have to go to behavioral health, right?
Yeah.
In my county, if I want to seek mental health, if I'm in a low spot, well, then I got to go sit and do a 2-hour intake in the lobby with all of the SSI people that are homeless, because so there's a big stigma to it, and it goes down to no Medicare.
Well, it's like AA and NA, right? It's like a form of therapy. You're going in there and you're relating to people who have the same common goal as you, or somewhat of the same problem. They're down the same path.
I met amazing people through AA and NA in my life that have always been supportive and great. I've known many that have backslid. I've had some who've died. My very first sponsor died a year after I met them. They slid back and died.
Yeah. Let's get on to the Matt-related litigation program.
Okay,
we got a couple videos still to go through, and I think we're having some great conversation. I want to thank the audience on the YouTube, Steve Cutler, Gamer for Life, Jilly Love, all these people, Barbara jumping in. Somebody had a great name, Dirtbag Leftist. That's what I want to be referred to, Dirtbag Leftist. When somebody goes, oh, the Jimmy Dore left, when I made that comment about Sam Cedar, I'm like, address me who I am. I'm the Dirtbag left, not the Jimmy Dore left. Dirtbag.
That's right. No.
Tell us about the MAP program.
Okay, so in March of 2018, the Department of Justice announced that it was investigating whether Massachusetts DOC has a ban on certain MAT options violated the Americans with Disability Act, the ADA, which the DOJ argued protects people with opiate addictions. While not concluding that the state had violated the law, the DOJ officials reminded Massachusetts that it has existing obligations to accommodate the disability. Following up on the DOJ's letter, the American Civil Liberties Act Union, ACLU, of Massachusetts filed a federal lawsuit in September of 2018 against the state DOC over its MAT policy. On November 26, 2018, the district court issued an injunction that halted the policy and ordered the DOC to provide methadone to plaintiffs in the case of Gregory Pesce as part of the opioid dependency recovery process. The certain case remains ongoing, but has been pending settlement negotiation. So basically,
there's acknowledgement.
The ADA said, hey, this is fucking a disease. You guys can't do that.
Yeah. Which, the ACLU is good in certain situations, shit in others. You know what I'm saying? You got to play them for what they are and stuff like that. But this is a situation where they are right. You know what I'm saying? At the very least right now, we have to pay attention to this. We have to acknowledge this, that when we send people to prison or we send people to jail for however amount of time, they might have an opioid addiction. They might be on methadone. They might be part of the process and stuff like that. And we have to take that into consideration. Just thinking about what a person has to go through while in jail, you know what I'm saying, while they're coming down and they desperately need their medication. Not only the hell they're going through themselves, but the treatment, Chanda, they get, like you just told me. Every once in a while, maybe the nurse comes by. Here's a what do they give them? An ibuprofen. Like, get the hell out of here. So the fact that we have acknowledgement, hats off to the ACLU on this one. Hats off to them on this one. But it is something we need to start thinking about too. And everybody has to start. We need people to have compassion for this. You know what I'm saying? The old
Nobody
school,
had compassion.
Got arrested. Yeah. No, it's not like that anymore. When the numbers are this high, it's not about individual choices. It's about a systemic issue. We have a fucking systemic issue. We have to take it on for what it is. We have to acknowledge that. And we need to make sure these people get the proper treatment when they get in. And especially, Chanda, what you've taught me from what we talked about today and watching today's videos, when they get out, that's when they're most vulnerable. 15% of those addicts could die. That number is way too high. So we have to be able to, maybe if they have to go check in to someplace or talk to somebody, a social worker.
Well, don't just kick them out either. Have a plan. Like, okay, this person came in on heroin, going through withdrawals. The judge should have a plan. Okay, the minute you get out of jail, you're going to go over here and meet with these people. We don't do that. We just kick them out and, get out, go live your life.
All right, well, let's watch the second part of this video. This is when the ACLU now takes over and realizes that, okay, we're going to take on the prison system. And the shame about it is, Chanda, too, you told me it's like, okay, the state and the county prisons, they'll take it in, they'll understand it. But the privately owned prisons that we have, and most of the prisons we have in the United States are privately owned. They should be doing something about it. And you said once they get wind of the fact that they can make a few extra dollars here, they'll eventually take it in. Once Big Pharma gives them their slice of the pie, no?
Yep. I do think that once Big Pharma actually makes it a hand in hand with the private prison, this will be standard across the board in all prisons and jails.
Let's roll with it, Oz.
There.
We started looking at this problem of denying people in jails access to medications probably 2 or 3 years ago. And it was in that initial investigation that we, started looking at Whatcom County specifically.
The county jail had been taking some steps forward. In 2016, Wendy and her medical staff began offering medication-assisted treatment to pregnant inmates.
If a pregnant woman starts going through withdrawal, she can lose the baby and she may lose her own life.
When I first started using heroin was 12 years ago. We thought since we could control all other drugs, we could control that one. We ended up being wrong. One time I was actually pregnant with twins and I came in and I lost, I don't know if it was from the gel that I actually lost the twins, but I did lose them at 6 months because one heart stopped and then it stopped the other heart. So it was from not taking Suboxone though. This time I'm pregnant too and they've been on it. So I got in, I told them I was sick, I was on certain medications and I had them within 24 hours. So it's been a lot better.
We were working our way towards the medication-assisted withdrawal. It's just, things are expensive and you've got to plan them in budgets and at that point, and still I would argue it's not necessarily the community standard within jails.
The lawsuit, Court Lever v. Whatcom County, was filed in June of 2018. The basic nature of the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, is to sort of prevent people from being discriminated against because of their disability. And having a substance use disorder is akin to having, diabetes or heart disease. And what you've seen is that a lot of these facilities don't treat it as the medical issue that it really is.
Have you had any overdoses?
Oh yeah, I've overdosed twice.
Opioid use disorder is probably one of the hardest substance use disorders to treat without medication, but the easiest to treat with medication. Without medication, and this isn't including those incarcerated, there's only about a 10% success rate.
I wish I could just stay clean and not have to use Suboxone, if that makes any sense. But some people can't. One thing I would like, for the judges to understand when people come in and take care of their warrants, and this is why they ran for a couple of years, because back in 2018 or 17, they were forced to detox in jail. That's my issue.
The basic crux of this case is that people on MAT should be able to stay on that prescription medication too.
In April of 2019, Whatcom County settled the class action lawsuit with the ACLU and agreed to begin offering medication-assisted treatment to inmates suffering from opioid use disorder within 90 days.
Money that might have been spent in a lawsuit is now being spent on this program. I think it's a more humane way of dealing with people who have a very, very serious problem. And I'm lucky my sheriff does too.
We've agreed to the court retaining jurisdiction of that issue for another year so that they're certain that we're moving forward and fulfilling the commitments that we made, and that's just what we intend to do.
I think people have heard about the lawsuit and the results of it and said, well, I guess we better get on the bandwagon.
As of July 2019, the ACLU has successfully challenged jails in Massachusetts and Maine to begin their own MAT programs.
The states that have incorporated medication-assisted treatment into their prison system have had wonderful numbers coming out. They show a significant decrease in recidivism once they're released, a significant decrease in mortality once they're released, and a significant increase in treatment engagement once they're released. So there's a lot of evidence that points towards medication-assisted treatment.
So how about if we just do our check-in? Where would you be without medication-assisted treatment? And what have you been able to accomplish?
I'd be homeless for sure. I'd probably be dead. What have I been able to accomplish? Courage. To be me again.
The biggest thing I'd like people to understand is not just our jail, but pretty much all jails. aren't just punishment. They are, in fact, kind of the last social service agency for a community.
God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, and the courage, Lord, to change the things I
Chanda.
can.
I get choked up every single time I see
I know,
this
me
stuff,
too. You saw
right?
me
It's
blotting my eyes during the video
oh
because
my
I
lord.
relate. I relate so much. You know, this woman is very compassionate, this nurse at this jail. I gotta say, one time I was in King County Jail, which is not a place you want to be. That's Seattle's big jail. And they actually, their medical staff there did have compassion for me. They gave me some clonidine, which clonidine is not a benzoid, but it does ease a little bit of withdrawal symptoms. And they gave me some blood pressure meds to help lower my blood pressure. And then immediately I got out. So I remember leaving the jail high. How funny is that? I was high on all the stuff they gave me. But we need more people. I mean, like, I live in a rural community, and our bench judge was a Republican. And of course they're just like, no, it's that pull yourself up by your bootstraps, just spin dry mentality. And yeah, I think it's going to take lawsuits to get it into so many of these smaller communities.
It's funny because in some areas that's now flopped, right? Because so many Republicans have gotten
Right,
accused.
we flopped, yeah.
Yeah. Well, they've gotten accused for not having compassion, and therefore they're having some compassion. Where Democrats they've gotten scared of the "you're not tough enough on crime" mentality.
Oh yeah.
And
Well,
so
look
now
at
the
the
judges are like, "That's it, I
primary.
gotta be tough now," and stuff.
Look
But
at the New York primary. What the number one candidate ran on crime, right?
the mayor candidate,
Yeah, yeah,
you talking about the Democratic primary?
yeah.
Yeah, of course. And it's funny too because the Republican candidate who won, his name was Sliwa, right? And he's he started the Guardian Angels, which were like a lot of people assumed that they were just arresting people with drugs on the streets and stuff like that. But I'd like to know a little bit more because from what I understand is that they were starting to move towards how do we also take the next step of helping these people get into the
Outreach.
recovery they need
Yeah.
because they started arresting their neighbors and they started really, holy shit. So I would like to talk to Curtis Sliwa about more about his to see if it is the way they were framed as just arresting drug users on the street. But here's the last thing I want to say before we get on to this next small clip that we have to talk about really well because I had a friend had a very similar situation. Is that when the nurse said it's got to be more than just about punishment. It's got to be more. It should be looked upon as the last line of social services used to get somebody the help they need. If somebody ends up in jail because of drugs, because of addiction, we should have a system, if we're the United States of America, that we do everything great, where we should be able to help people then move on from a situation. Okay, like how much drugs were you taking? This is what you are and whatnot. Okay, let's see if we can slowly move you down or whatever, or move you out so that when you do get out, like you said, have a plan that where they can maybe set it straight. Because there is that rock bottom feeling you get maybe for the first time when you're in jail, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
maybe if we find a way to use that to our advantage as society to say, okay, you've hit rock bottom. How are we getting out of this? Let's help you get out of it. Not just punish you and say, just make a choice, just say no, but really give you the social help that you need. If we were serious about treating our addicts when they get arrested here in the United States.
Absolutely, I agree. I absolutely agree with that.
So let's talk about this right here. Let's talk about the treatment an addict gets when they go into the hospital. A lot of times hospital staff doesn't understand the full scope of the withdrawals. And here's a short clip of a reenactment of an addict in major discomfort. And I got to tell you something. I experienced this when my father was in the hospital. And I ran into a nurse at a night shift when I got off of working a 14-hour shift to go see my father. And she didn't care.
Yeah,
She didn't give a
some don't.
friggin' damn. And I almost lost my shit. And the next day, the nurse that was there was just comforting me and saying, and I'm literally yelling and crying from the bad treatment she gave my father, because that's sometimes we don't realize too, as well, is that, they're humans too, right? Right. The nurse, right? They might have not treated my father like a human being. They might have treated him like a number too, but what's going through their fucking life too as well. So trying to understand both parts and stuff like that, because this woman who treated my father like crap, had been working double shifts, 2 jobs, was interning, all this whole 9 yards. not to excuse her behavior, but just to have some understanding. All right, well, how do we sail the ship straight? How do we straighten out the voyage that we need to go on?
You got the door? Ready for a report on room 346?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so we have an Yvette Ogum. She is a 34-year-old female brought into ambulance last night at 1800 for a heroin overdose. She was given 2 doses of naloxone, 2 milligrams each dose. She vomited twice following the naloxone. Following stabilization in the ER, she's brought to our floor for monitoring. Patient is allergic to aspirin and has a history of back surgery in 2012. She has depression and drug abuse. Patient has been admitted twice before for heroin overdose and has been sent to rehab 3 times in the last 3 years. I'm guessing she became addicted to the pain medication after her back surgery and switched over to heroin because it was cheaper and easier to get. She did tell me that she's currently going through a divorce with her husband and that she has a bad relationship with her 2 kids. No surprise there. Patient is a hard stick and has a 22 gauge in her right forearm. Labs pending for ETOH, urine toxicology, CBC, CMP, magnesium, and phosphorus. In terms of assessment, she is alert and oriented ×3, lung sounds clear, pulse is strong, abdomen tender. She has track marks all over her extremities, no sign of cellulitis or abscesses yet, but keep watch of her left forearm. We have her on 400 milligrams ibuprofen every 6 hours for her back pain. Next dose is at 8 a.m. She's been ringing her call bell every hour. She is super anxious. She's really high maintenance, so best just to avoid her. She's a drug seeker. She will eat up all your time. Good luck with her.
I'm feeling very concerned about the direction we're going here. I know you're trying to give me a heads up on the situation, but labeling the patient can be unproductive. My experience has been that most often these patients are under-medicated. What was her most recent COW score?
Her most recent COW score was 14.
And how did she sleep last night?
With the amount of time she was using her call bell, I'm pretty sure she didn't get any sleep last night. I gotta get out of here. Good luck with her.
Hello, I'm Sharon. I'm going to be your nurse for today. What would you like to be called?
Look, I've been in severe pain all night. All they gave me was Motrin. Motrin's fine for bee stings, but it's not going to do anything to help the pain. It's going to drive me through that wall.
I'm sorry you feel bad. I'm here to help you. Can you please rate your pain on a scale of 1 to 10?
It feels like a Mack truck ran over my back, backed up and ran back over it again. A 25. Some morphine.
Okay, I'll see what I can do. But first, I have to do an assessment. I'm going to ask you some questions. Are you feeling any other symptoms?
You mean besides being annoyed by these twits, being ignored when I call for help, and being treated like a leper?
I'm sorry you feel this way, like you've been ignored. It seems like you had a rough night and are very uncomfortable. I'm going to call the doctor to see if I can get some more pain medicine for your withdrawal symptoms. But first, I'm going to complete an assessment on you.
Okay, whatever.
Do you have any tremors? Okay, I'm going to check your heart rate. I'm going to look into your eyes. Thank you. How many times have you vomited?
3 times since I got here.
Is it still clear liquid coming up?
Yeah.
Have you had any diarrhea?
Yeah, and soon all my insides will either be out or puked up. Have some oxygen.
Okay, I'm going to call the doctor for you to get some more pain medicine, okay? I have seen that you're sweated through your gown. I'm going to get you a new gown, some cool compress, and I have some nausea medication for you. Does that sound like a plan?
Whatever, I'll believe it when I see it.
Okay, I'll be right back with that, okay?
Wow, I should have took notes on that one.
Well, we're gonna watch the second part of it after we get a little feedback from you here, Shanda, too, as well. Because I did relate when I saw this video, because I remember like the nurse the very next day when I went in to see my father, because I couldn't wait to get back to that hospital. It was late night. There wasn't a lot of staff around when I went in there the first time, and I fought with this nurse, and she just gave me lip, and she didn't seem like she cared. And uh, when I went back the next day, I went to speak to the nurse that I had had a history with, and she took me in a room. She sat down with me. She said she apologized. She says, "This is what I did for your father this morning, blah, blah, blah." And I looked at it, I was like, wow, like, I mean, all it does take is a little compassion and understanding. And that's what that job does require. And she also explained to me the girl that was taking care of my father the night before was just beyond overworked, stressed out, going through a lot of stuff, had lost her sister recently, and all this other thing. So it really made me thinking about the system on both sides and stuff. You know what I'm saying? And I just want to know your thoughts, because I've also had a friend who was in the hospital who had problems with his spleen, and they wouldn't give him medication because they thought he was a drug seeker.
Yeah.
So just your thoughts on that whole situation.
Well, this is a dance that I danced from 2003 till 2011 before I moved on to screwing them on the street. You don't want to be classified as a drug seeker, because then you're immediately what they call red flagged. Your chart, we've kept pretty digital records for many years now. So my local hospital could see my doctor's chart even back then. And, a lot of it depended on your look. So my little hospital, rural hospital, was inundated, I'd say, for the last 15 years with drug seekers. You'd go into the local ER, and there would be a person with a broken arm and a guy having a heart attack coming through. And then there would be 6 drug seekers, what they would deem as drug seekers, that they'd leave sitting out in the waiting room 5, 6, 10, 12 hours. I mean, and these people would be there for a variety of things. Toothaches, that I ended up in the ER quite a few times with, abscessed teeth, and they just consider you a drug seeker because you're at the ER with a toothache, because you're seeking pain medication. I had some doctors who were very compassionate, and nurses that were very compassionate. Here, let me get you comfortable, no matter what I was in there for. I've had a whole gamut of different surgeries in the last 15 years. And so some were very good, but then there was some, I remember I had a metal pin through my whole entire leg, my whole tibia, because I had a major surgery, and the pin started backing out. So I literally had this screw sticking out of my shin. I could hang a picture on it. That's how far it was sticking out. So I go back to my doctor, and by then he pushes me off on one of his partners to have it removed. And I remember that doctor walking into the recovery room after I had surgery. He handed me one script for, like, I don't know, 30 Percocet or Vicodin. And I'd never seen this guy other than the day before when he said he was going to do my surgery. And he said, "And I don't want you calling me and asking for another damn script. This is all you're getting." And I was shocked, like, where the hell did this guy get this? Is there something in my chart that says I'm a drug seeker, or is that just the way he treats people? But I get it when I see these hospital staff that is so run down. They see the same people, once a week, that are running out of meds. They're demanding, I need something to get me well. They used to, at my local hospital, they probably give you 6 Vicodin and throw you out the door just to shut you up and get you out of there.
Yeah.
But they don't even do that now. They rely on a medication called Ultram or Tramadol, which is a synthetic that they invented, I don't know, probably around 10 years ago, thinking that it would replace opiates. But because it's a synthetic, it turns out that it's even more addictive than what they were trying to replace, a Percocet. And so that's kind of their go-to now, is this kind of half-ass synthetic. It's not classified a narcotic, but it is very addictive. Yeah. And the nurses are frustrated. The doctors are frustrated. You're taking time from people who are having serious problems. But when you have nowhere else to go in the community and you're losing your shit, I mean, when you're coming down off of anything, heroin, methadone, whatever, you'll start taking whatever you can because you're trying to control the symptoms. So like in that video, she said, "I've got some nausea medicine for you." Well, nausea medicine will normally calm your stomach, plus it'll make you tired. So as an addict, you're like, okay, well, that'll make my stomach feel better and maybe help me sleep. It's not going to get rid of your hot flashes. It's not going to get rid of all of the other symptoms you're having. So you're trying to counterbalance everything that's going on. So then you're just in a complete mental breakdown at the point where you're just taking anything.
I think the quagmire too of that what you talked about is really, it's got to be factored in. And we do talk about the staff that's run down. I know when my father was, my biological father was going through the whole system, that I had a different look and outlook on nurses, right? I would make sure that I would say, like, you ladies deserve so much. If you do something wrong, somebody can die. If I do something wrong, somebody doesn't get their Diet Coke. It's a big thing. So I make it sure it's point, like, even the nurses that might not be the best or have an issue and stuff, when you tell them they did something right, when you see it, maybe that will push them further to have more patience and do what we're about to see, which is this nurse having a lot of compassion. She even said it's not good to really label everybody, because that's what happens. You'll have the 8 drug seekers now, all different stories, all different ways of getting there, treated the same, like criminals.
Well, and the repercussion of that is like people like your dad, who, the policy became so horrendous in my local hospital that old people who were truly there for legitimate reasons were not getting medications because, they're a drug seeker. And I was just fucking floored. Like, are you kidding me?
That's what they did to my father.
That's
what they did. And I'll never forget it. I was like, what?
It pisses you off. That's what those medications are there for, Yeah.
So let's watch the rest of this because I think a little extra patience and a little extra love, and we can see someone drive it home. So let's take a look.
Hello, this is Dr. Lopez. How may I help you?
Dr. Lopez, this is Sharon Fairweather calling from Montgomery Hospital about your patient, Miss Yvette Ogam, in room 346.
Oh, yes, I remember her. What is happening with her now?
She was admitted for heroin overdose yesterday. Her COWS score is a 35. She has a history of depression and back pain following surgery 5 years ago. She appears to be in a lot of pain and is anxious and vomiting.
What's her vital signs?
Blood pressure 150/85, heart rate 122, respirations 22, temperature 98.6, pulse ox 100% on room air. She's due for her ibuprofen, but that does not seem to cover her back pain. I am worried that she's withdrawing from heroin. I would like to have an order for anti-anxiety medication and something besides the ibuprofen for her pain.
Any allergies?
Only to aspirin.
Okay, give her,
Your COWS score is now a 10. How are you feeling about your pain now?
I can manage. You're the only one that's treated me like a human being since I got here.
Heroin withdrawal is no walk in the park. I've seen you've been through detox several times. We're going to help you get help when you leave here.
I can't keep doing this to my kids. They need me.
I am here for you, to support you. We're going to get you help, and we're going to look at all the solutions that are possible. You are not alone. We're all working together for you to feel better. Thank you.
All it takes.
Oz, why did you put me on TV screen so they can see me cry? Jeez,
right?
I can't keep doing this to my kids, and I just get all choked up and stuff. But what a happy story in a way. Well, not happy, but seeing like you're not alone. We're gonna help you get through this, and sometimes all it does take one person. That one person could be the world to an addict who has been just looked upon as a drug seeker, as like when they told you, this is per your prescription, so don't ask for more. You know what I'm saying? It's like how amazing it could be for one person to make a difference in somebody's life who's in hell right now and trying to make their way back.
Yeah, absolutely. One time I broke my leg on a 4th of July, right as the sun was going down and fireworks were going off. So as I get to the hospital, of course, they're very, very short staffed. and they didn't have a doctor there at the time. They just had a physician's assistant. So they x-rayed my leg, and she said, "Oh, it's not broken. You're just overreacting. Get up and walk on it." And I was like, okay, whatever. At that point, I was so pissed, like, for the way that I'd been treated. I just wanted the hell out of there. And I remember they gave me 6 Vicodin, and they wrapped it up in an ace bandage, and they sent me out of there. And the next morning, I woke up, and my whole foot was completely black, and it was 5 sizes big. It looked like it was just gonna fall off. It was so bad. So I called into the next town over, the next county, where my orthopedic surgeon was for my knee. And I said, "Hey, if I come in, will you look at my leg?" And he said, "Yeah, just come through the ER down here." The difference of how I was treated from one ER in one county to another ER in the other county was fucking night and day. When I got to the other county, they immediately gave me pain meds as I walked through the door. I don't even think I'd seen a doctor yet, and they were already offering me pain meds. They had called ahead and got my x-rays from the other hospital, and guess what? It was broken. They didn't have a radiologist on staff the night before when I had been there, so it hadn't been read till the next morning. That hospital never called me and said, "Hey, by the way, your leg is broken. You might want to go get a cast or something." They left it up to me to figure it out. And I was in a cast for literally 6 months. My leg still bothers me. My ankle still has problems because it never got set right, because it sat for days untreated, from one hospital telling me that I was just being a crybaby and to get up and walk out on it. So the difference from medical clinician to the other is just night and day. It's the level of care that we need to start requiring for all facilities.
Just thinking about the lady in LA who was left out
Yeah.
in the cold, and
You
she
hear about
just
it every day.
she died out in the streets because the nursing staff was just fed up with her and didn't want to deal with her no more.
Yep.
Thought she was a faker, and unfortunately, she wasn't a faker because she's no longer with us. It's coming to about an hour and a half, so I think we got to wrap this up. What do we got over here?
What do we got? Let's talk
Sold
about
10 ounces of organic plant matter, and now I'm sitting in a prison. Who's your daddy? Who gets to sell what? You know what I'm saying? It's like you kill 2 people, you're a murderer, you kill 1 million, and you're a leader. You're some schmuck on the street, you sell plant matter, you're a criminal, you're the Purdue pharmacy, you know what I'm saying? And now a big corporation that's going to be honored. It's just ridiculous. Is this McAfee's boat over here? What is this?
No, that's not McAfee. That's a Slacker family, right?
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. They filed bankruptcy. They're out, living life now.
Yeah, right. So spot the social problem. Like we just said, sold 50,000 tons of opioid, addictive opioids. You know what I'm saying? I think we're over 500,000 people who have died in the opioid addiction since we started this thing. 500,000 people. Goodbye.
More than Vietnam. More than Vietnam.
More than Vietnam. And anything else, Oz, before we get on out of here?
No, you guys are great. Thanks.
All right,
Well,
ladies and gentlemen,
thank
that's
you.
it for To Hell and Back for episode 5. We got Chanda, 5 episodes in the books. How about
5
that?
episodes. You guys have been amazing. Thank you all for your support. It was kind of hard, I got to say, from the beginning, going out and telling my story for years now, and then doing it this way. It's kind of scary to put yourself out there and your truth and your skeletons, but you guys are just embracing us, and you're pushing us down the road. I'm just writing down show topics. So like medical marijuana, benzoids, Adderall, fentanyl. I mean, there's so much we want to cover, that there's just so much to this heartbreaking story of America.
And what we'll do is we'll sprinkle in for the people who are watching the show, who want to maybe tell their story. They can either put up a little video or something. We'll figure it out. We'll include your stories as being part of the whole therapy that we're producing over here to help people get straight. I think that's also something we should do as well, Chanda. I know there's a couple colleagues of ours.
Email.
Yeah. I think there's a couple colleagues of ours that are ready to come on the show.
Nice.
And tell their stories. And thank you to, I can never say Zoxovic, Zoxovix,
Zoxovix.
Yeah. How do you say it?
Zoxovix.
Yeah.
Zoxovix.
And I just want to say thank you so much, David Crow. David Crow, I see you. I am so glad that I've known you as I love Crow too. And who
doesn't love David Crow?
He's been at the School of Hard Knocks with us, so he knows.
David Crow doesn't believe in chemtrails. I don't know if
Well, we're
Keith
gonna have
Hayes
to have a talk
does.
about that. I think Crow and I have talked about that before.
That's a different show. That's a different show. We won't get into that. I'm not saying anything on the record when it comes to geoengineering on the show. This show's about addiction, one thing at a time. Oz, play us on out. Thank you very much. We love you all. For Pasta Jardula of the Convo Couch, Chanda Masta of Roar Media, the accidental activist, and the man with the overalls behind the microphone, behind the screen, Oz. We love you guys. We'll see you next week.
Bye.